afternoon. It is noon. Thank you for joining me today with our Friday Lunch and Learn. Now today we're going to be talking about the vagus nerve and how social interaction and social engagement help us to operate in a sense of stability and calmness and that kind of thing. Now, the reason I wanted to talk to you about this today is because there is so much in the media about how we need to separate, how we need to stay at home, how we need to not congregate. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about how this is very, very detrimental to your health. And I want to give you some information so you can make the best decision for you and your family as we continue to go through this COVID crazy. And I say that because there's just so much information out there, and there's so much information that contradicts other information. And so it depends on how the data is released and how you are interpreting the data, whether you're going to be confused or whether you're going to be in a heightened state of fear and that kind of thing. We do not want you to get into fear. I was looking at a report yesterday, and it said that in the Harris County area, the Houston area, that the COVID count over the last 7 days had increased by 1.3%. Guys, that's hardly anything, okay? They're not talking to you about deaths anymore. They're talking to you about how many cases there are. There are going to be more cases because there is more testing. So you really just have to put this into perspective. Now, I want to talk again. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to talk about the vagus nerve. And you might be thinking, what goes to Vegas stays in Vegas. Vegas stays in Vegas. It's a different kind of vagus. It is the 10th cranial nerve. So I'm going to try and picture this. Your spinal column is here. Of course, this is from the back of my head, and you're going to look like this. There's 12 cranial nerves that come up the back of my spine, across my head, and down, okay? So the vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve, and it is the nerve that tells the brain and the gut how to respond to each other. Now, we know that most of our immune system is in the gut, and so that's kind of hard to understand, but I want to tell you a funny story, and then I'm hoping to be able to get you to understand what I'm talking about. And then we're going to move into how this situation works with social engagement and social deprivation, okay? So kind of work with me. I'm going to try and not have medical jargon. I'm going to try and put it in layman's terms so you're going to understand this. So I remember, and this is probably about 20 years ago, I was still teaching in the classroom, and some student opened up, we were having a break, and some student opened up a pack of hot Cheetos. Okay, I was trying to think, I wanted to say Cheerios, I knew it wasn't Cheerios, Cheetos. Okay, and as I walked by that student, he had just popped open this bag of Cheetos. I caught a whiff of the spiciness. I walked up to my desk, I sat down at my desk, and my heart just started going crazy. I mean, I felt like my heart was going to beat out of my chest, and I started hyperventilating, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, oh my God, what is happening to me? And so I kind of calmed down. It took maybe, I don't know, it was a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. My heart just calmed down. I never ate a Cheeto. I wasn't that close to it, but when he popped open that packet, woo, that smell. And so I asked my very good nursing friend, Linda, and I asked her, I said, what just happened to me? Because this was just really crazy. And she said, well, what happened was probably something with your vagus nerve. I said, well, what does that mean? She said, well, the scent stimulated something in the nerve, and the nerve stimulated the heart and that kind of thing. And I thought, well, I don't ever want to have that happen again, because it was very uncomfortable, and it was something that I don't want to repeat, okay? So we do know that the vagus nerve, as I said, is the 10th cranial nerve, okay? It goes from the brain to the gut, from the gut back to the brain, okay? So as it is ascending, all right, 90% of the vagus nerve fibers go up. It tells the brain about inflammation, when you're hungry and when you're full, when you have energy metabolism. It coordinates with the brain on that. coming back down from the brain, it tells the gut what secretion, right, of gastric acid and digestive enzymes to release, and then it tells you when you are full. So those are 10% of the fibers come down. So 90% go up, 10% come down. So I'm going to show you this little picture here, okay? Here is a picture of the gut and the brain, and you see that there are 3 different pathways, okay? So this is kind of what we're talking about right here with this nerve. Everybody has one, okay? You cannot live without one. So I just want to tell you a little bit about this. Okay, so there is the autonomic nervous system, okay? And it has 2 branches to it. It has the sympathetic and it has the parasympathetic. Now, the sympathetic is the fight or flight, okay? When I am stressed, when I am anxious, when things are not going right in my world, then I am in sympathetic dominance. That means all of my cortisol is rising, my adrenaline is rising. I'm ready to fight you. I'm ready to run from you, okay? As a little girl, okay, I don't like bugs. I've never liked bugs. I've never liked bees. I'm just telling you, I don't like those kind of things. And I remember as a little girl, we had, my daddy had built us a house. It was a round house, and we had some fencing. And the fence was 6-foot fence. And somehow, don't even ask me what happened because I don't know, but I was in the back of the house and I was in the back of the fence and I was being chased by a bee. Now, I'm absolutely frightened of bees and insects in general, and I promise you, as God is my witness, with that bee chasing me, I was able to scale that fence and get out into the fresh air and be able to get away from it. I think probably I jumped into the pool or something like that. So I know that when you are in fight and flight, you've got all kinds of superhuman energy and you can do things that you couldn't do before. And this is really good when you're trying to escape the bee. It's great for our ancestors when they were trying to escape the saber-toothed tiger, okay? It is good for us when we are in a situation where we need to run away. What we don't want to do is stay in that sympathetic dominance for a long period of time, because when you do, you get something called adrenal fatigue. Now, I know that the medical profession does not believe in adrenal fatigue, but we can measure it, and we know that there are hormone tests that test your cortisol levels, and you can get out of balance with your cortisol and your adrenaline, and it's called a negative feedback loop. Now, that is medical. There are blood tests, there are saliva tests that tell you that. So being in the sympathetic dominance is really, really important when you are in a dangerous situation, when you're in a stressful situation. But you do not want to be in that stressful situation for a long time. So the other system for the autonomic nervous system is the parasympathetic. Now, the parasympathetic is not your fight or flight, okay? Your parasympathetic is rest and restore, okay? And that's the system that you want to be in most of the time, all right? Where we are today with COVID crazy, people are losing their jobs, people are losing their families, people are falling prey to depression. I just heard that the governor now has cut back the capacity for the restaurants to 50% from 75%. He's also closed down all the bars. He's closed down outdoor activities and that kind of thing, which is sad because as human beings, one of the things that we are meant to do is to be in that social state that fosters parasympathetic dominance, okay? Remember, parasympathetic is rest and restore. That's what we want to do, all right? So, the vagus nerve, which is what we were talking about, is a component of the parasympathetic nervous system. It oversees a vast array of critical bodily functions, including control of mood, immune response, digestion, and heart rate. Remember I told you that when I smelt those hot Cheetos, my heart rate was just pounding. I mean, I'm sitting there and my little thumper was just pumping. And I was really scared that I might be having a heart attack. And my My brain is saying, you only smelled Cheetos. You didn't do anything to warrant a heart attack. But my heart was going crazy. And why is that? Because somehow something in my body thought I was being threatened. Okay, that's just the way it goes. It's been good. I haven't had that again. And thank God I haven't. Okay, so vagal tone is correlated with the capacity to regulate stress responses, and it can be influenced by breathing. It is increased through meditation and yoga, and it is likely to contribute to the resilience and the mitigation of mood and anxiety symptoms. So, you know, when we're stressed, people tell you to just let it go. People tell you to do emotional freedom technique, tapping. You know, I've got videos on that if you want to look at that. Also, prayer, meditation, yoga, all that kind of stuff calms the body down and puts you in that parasympathetic system. So those are all really good, and that's what this paper is telling us that it does, okay? It says that the gut-brain axis is becoming increasingly important as a therapeutic target for gastrointestinal distress disorder, or PTSD as well. The gut is an important central control center of the immune system, and the vagus nerve has immunomodulatory properties. That means it modulates your immune system. So what are we talking about? We're talking about this silly virus that is really attacking people's immune system. If you can stay in parasympathetic mode, then you're going to have a better stress response to that, and that's what we want, okay? It says the vagus nerve, let me see if I can get this here, carries an extensive range of signals from the digestive system and organs to the brain and vice versa, okay? Because of its long path through the human body, it has also been described as the wanderer nerve, okay? So I showed you a picture of that. So there's this new study, it's called the Polyvagal Theory, okay, of the central nervous system and how you can control it so that you can moderate and hopefully increase your immune response. This is why this is so important in this day and age where, of course, our Harris County judge is calling for social distancing again. Stay home, stay safe. That's what they're telling you. They're telling you that you're selfish if you go out. They're telling you that you are not being considerate if you go out. But I just want to give you some information about why social interaction is so, so important now at this time. Now, does that mean I'm going to go into a crowd of people and start kissing on everybody? No, I'm not going to do that. All right, but I am going to go out, I am going to see my friends, I am going to do what I can do to maintain that parasympathetic state, which is the rest and restore, okay? So this is an article that talks about the polyvagal theory, and there's 3 different states of this vagus nerve. One is social engagement, one is fight or flight, and one is shutdown. So when we are shut down and in our homes and we're made to social distance and all that kind of stuff, we actually get into a shutdown mode in our immune system, which makes us far more susceptible to any kind of virus out there. So I just want to give you some information. You can make the best choice for you and your family. Everybody is different. Everybody has different needs. I'm just trying to give you some information, okay? So it says veterans and people who have experienced child abuse and others that have experienced trauma are often left with emotional and psychological scars. Well, gee whiz, I think that's probably 95 to 99% of the population. No, I have not had a bad childhood. I was not abused in my childhood, but you know what? I lost a husband at a very young age. I've had children that have gone through trauma, which traumatizes me. I've had other situations in my life that have not been good, and so there is trauma. Every one of us has trauma. You may have lost a spouse, you may have lost a parent, you may have lost a child, you may be in a situation right now where you're about to lose your livelihood. There are many different things going on right now. This is all very, very traumatic, okay? So we all have trauma and we all respond to trauma in a different way, okay? It says that despite decades of effort, there's no clear-cut answer about how to heal them. Some trauma researchers believe that trauma leaves an emotional imprint, not just on our psyche, but also in the tissues of our body. And naturopaths and holistic healers will always say your issues are in the tissues. Now, I know it's kind of an alliterative phrase, but it makes it really easy to understand because every cell in your body, and remember, we're 73% water, all right? You want to look at a book called The Biology of Belief. And in that book, it talks about water and how water has memory and water remembers. There is a Japanese biologist, I think he is. He might be a physicist, but anyway, he's a scientist. And he has taken, I want to say Carillion photography. That might not be the exact word, but I think it is. He has taken water, put water on a slide, put the slide under an electron microscope and played different kinds of music and has watched the water crystals change their shape in response to the music that the water heard. Now, some of you may say that water does not hear, but these experiments show that water does in fact hear. Dr. Dickie Fuller, who is she's got several degrees, she's very, very smart. She says that every cell in your body remembers everything that has ever happened to you. And so we definitely believe that your emotional trauma, if you don't deal with it and deal with it appropriately, can actually change the way your body responds. So that's something that we do all the time here in the clinic as we deal with emotional trauma, we deal with mental trauma, spiritual trauma, and also physical trauma, because 85% of the cause of sickness and disease is emotional trauma, okay? You can look at that, you can research that yourself, but you'll see that that is true. So there are the 3 states I told you about. Social engagement. This is the first one. This is the most healthy, okay? According to this researcher, his name is Porges, Porges. He says the state of social engagement is the most promising and the most healthy state. This is the state we try to be in when we are not dealing with an immediate stress or stressful situation. We feel safe, we feel open to experiences and people, we feel trusting, and we feel creative. Being in this state allows us to function effectively, think clearly, and make good decisions. So can you see that this social engagement is where you want to be, because you're going to make good decisions. You're going to do what's good for you, okay? The second one is the fight or flight. That's the one I told you about my bee story, okay? When I see a cockroach, I go into the same thing, okay? It's like, get me out of here. I don't want to be here. To me, it's a very stressful situation. But I'm not in fight or flight all the time, okay? I don't want to be in fight or flight at all. But if somebody is coming at me, or an insect or a wild beast or whatever, if someone's coming at me, then I do want that biochemical reaction so that I can move quickly, and I can get out of the way, okay? So the fight or flight is when we feel threatened or we feel afraid. We get into an energetically aroused state. Specific hormones in our body cause our muscles to increase in function. Our blood pressure goes up and we become more aggressive, all right? So the fight or flight response has been studied for decades, and our decision making tends to be more impulsive, we're less patient, we're more irritable, and we're more prone to anger. So if you know people who are irritable and prone to anger, you know that they are stuck in this fight or flight thing, okay? We don't want to be there. We'll have the cortisol spike, we'll have the adrenaline spike, and we'll definitely get into a situation of burnout, and that's not what we want to do, okay? When people say, and they get stuck in this sympathetic dominance, they tend to have a hard time interpreting situations accurately due to the influence of strong emotions, all right? So in a healthy individual, this state will be temporary and they will return to social engagement when the threat is gone. However, In some individuals, all right, they remain in it for most of the time, unable to return to a state of social engagement. Chronic stress is an example of being stuck in this pattern, all right? It leads to many chronic health problems such as heart disease, digestive problems, headaches, muscle tension, and much more. One of the things that it really leads to is bowel issues, so irritable bowel syndrome and Crohn's disease. So if you suffer from that, you're in a fight or flight situation and you've been in it for a long time, and so you're getting the negative messages in your gut, which is making your gut respond inappropriately. So we need to make sure that we check on that. The shutdown stage is the third stage, and when that comes into being, we are nervous and scared but have given up fighting. This state is closely related to depression. In a state of shutdown, we're having a hard time feeling joy or getting interested in doing anything. We lack interest, we lack focus, and we don't want to interact with people. It's hard to make decisions, and you may experience increased aches and pains, sadness, shame, and guilt, may feel worthless, apathetic, and hopeless, all right? We may lose our appetite or we may overeat. Both of those are signs of that. And we do know that with depression can include insomnia, depression can include lack of appetite, or depression can be, I just don't give a rip, I'm just going to eat everything in the house because that's the only thing I can do because I feel so hopeless and worthless. This is not where we want to be. And I will tell you that on the rise right now with this COVID crazy is depression. On the rise right now is suicide. I did some videos a couple of weeks ago that we talked specifically about those statistics. Alcoholism is on the rise. Drug abuse is on the rise. Child abuse is on the rise. Spouse abuse is on the rise. Why is that? Because people are stuck in the sympathetic dominance, and they may have moved to the shutdown phase where they don't care about anything anymore. They don't care, and there's no consequences, and nothing's going to get any better, so why bother? Right? Those are the kind of attitudes that we get, and that's very, very upsetting. And when you're isolated, you tend to feel more of that, and so isolation is not a good thing. It says this state, the shutdown state, preserves energy when compared to the fight or flight response. If a fight or flight response returns, we will quickly leave the shutdown state. An example, research on depression has shown that exercise or strong anger can bring someone out of a depressed state. But if the shutdown state lasts too long, it can turn to chronic depression. Now, there's two kinds of depression. There's situational depression, where something's going on in your life which is not just great. And then there's chronic clinical depression, which you've been in a depressed state for a long, long time, and your brain chemicals are just not functioning properly. And so you're not able to come out of it because your brain's not functioning. So this shutdown, all right, and we're talking about the social shutdown right now, when we're not with our friends, when we're not with our family, when we can't meet to talk things through, to get things off our chest and that kind of thing. Human touch is really, really important and brings people out of a depressive state, all right? I know I've been depressed in the past, when I've been able to touch someone, when I've been able to talk my emotions out and whatnot, that sense of depression quickly leaves. And so we just need to be aware, okay, of when we're in these three different states. Hopefully, none of us have family members that are in a shutdown stage. And hopefully, most of us should not have people in our lives, and nor we ourselves should be in that fight or flight category. But I will tell you, when I'm looking at social media posts, when I'm looking at things in the paper, People are agitated. People are angry, okay? Now, is it legitimate anger? I think in some cases it is, but it's not about whether we have anger, it's how we process that anger. We can process that anger, we can do something positive, we can get it off our chest, so to speak, and then return to the rest and restore parasympathetic state so that we're able to stay healthy and our immune system knows what to do, okay? The article says, while everyone enters the 3 different states routinely in different circumstances, some people will return to a state of social engagement relatively quickly when the stressful situation concludes. Other people have a harder time returning to that baseline. So you need to know where you are. You need to know if you are a person that can return fairly quickly to that. Now, I am that kind of person. I can easily return to that, and I think part of that is because I pray a lot. I meditate a lot. I do positive affirmations, okay? I shield myself from negativity. I shield myself from toxic relationships and toxic people, okay? If you're in my situation, if you're in my circle and you bring drama to the table every day, guess what? I'm gonna kind of move my circle away from you because I don't want to be in that fight or flight situation because all you're gonna do is make me irritated. And I don't like to be irritated. I like to be in the peaceful mode of rest and restore, not fight or flight. I don't like to feel threatened. I don't like all those kind of things. So I construct my life, I construct my friends, I construct my situation that it tends to rest and restore as opposed to fight or flight. And we can all do that. Now, there is that codependency thing. So some of you may have codependent relationships where you just can't disengage from someone who's toxic. Now, all of us have toxic people in our family. Unfortunately, we do. It's just how it is. We have toxic people in our circle. We all do. What we need to do is to be able to understand it, to be able to recognize it, and be able to take the appropriate steps to pull away and distance. So it's not just the toxic people, but it's toxic situations. So if I'm going to go into an environment that's going to get me hyped up, get me irritated, get me where I'm in a fight or flight situation, that's not good for my immune system. On the other hand, being separate, being alone, being closed off, being not able to express creativity, being not able to express friendship and that kind of thing also is detrimental to your emotional well-being. So what I want to do is just give you the tools, the understanding to understand that you've got the vagus nerve from your brain to your gut, all right? It's going back and forth all the time. The impulses are the electronic impulses. And so if you can figure out what is causing you stress and you can isolate that, then you're going to be in a much better position to keep your health, to keep your immune system functioning the way it needs to. When we are chronically in a fight or flight situation, we're going to be stressed out, we're going to be burned out, we're going to go into shutdown. When that happens, we're not going to be able to recover. We're going to just be like an open vessel for all kinds of negative information, all kinds of negative energy, all kinds of pathogens to come into our system, which is going to make us sick. So, what are the takeaways that I want you to have for today? Get yourself in a good social engagement situation. Rest and restore. What things bring you pleasure? What things bring you happiness, what things unleash your creativity. That's where you want to focus your energies. You want to get away and disengage from critical people, toxic situations, toxic environment, because that's going to wear you down and it's going to make you more susceptible, more open to pathogens, okay? So be good to yourself. It's the weekend. You know that I always rest on the weekend. I want to have fun. I want to just disengage from work. I want to disengage from toxic situations. I just want to get in that place where it's very, very restive and restorative. So I want you to take that away. See what you can do yourself this weekend to be able to work on your immune system so we don't fall prey to the corona crazy, okay? make sure that you get really good information out there. Don't just listen to what the television's telling you, because they are, I'm going to say this, they're hell-bent on making us afraid, okay? They're trying to just engender fear, and that's not what we want. We want to be positive. We want to know that there's a way out, and we want to make sure that we take care of ourselves. Self-care is important, so make sure that you do that. Love you guys. Thank you for giving me your time, and I will see you next week. Oh, I won't see you next week, because next week we're on vacation for 4th of July. Okay, 4th of July. So I know 4th of July is on Saturday, but Friday we're closed because it's the federal holiday. So I probably won't see you next week. So take care. Love you much. Bye-bye.